Do cross-country mountain bikes suck? Let's find out. This is my new Polygon Syncline C3, a budget carbon XC bike that's selling for $11.99. It weighs 31.5 pounds, and we gotta get that below 25 for this to be a race bike. I also want this bike to be fun, but it doesn't have a dropper, and the high seat gets in the way while jumping. Oh! And installing one is not gonna be easy. This is Project Agro XC. This video is sponsored by Waterdrop. Last November, Waterdrop sent me their ED01 water filter and I've been loving it, using it every day. Well, they just sent me their new Waterdrop C1H reverse osmosis system with instant hot water. The water tank capacity is about 13.5 cups. You can get hot water up to 203 degrees Fahrenheit within 3 seconds. And this has a 5-stage filtration system that removes all the nasty stuff like pharmaceuticals, arsenic, lead, fluoride, and the filter lasts 12 months. I'm super hyped on this water tank. Pour it straight into your cup and there's no waiting around for the water to dispense. And it's just super inviting to come get more water and stay hydrated. And I think that's actually gonna save me time throughout the day, not waiting for it to pour in my cup. But let's taste test this. That's some high quality H2O. And if you want to get a new C1H water filter for yourself, Waterdrop is offering 25% off. I'll have a link in the description. I've been mountain biking 3 years and I've never ridden an XC bike. Cross-country bikes have 100 to 120 millimeters of travel and a steeper head tube to be good at climbing. And with the stock version, right away, I could tell like, oh man, this bike has potential. It was snappy and it was good at climbing even though it was heavy. And then with the frame, I really like the shape and the lines of the tubing. It feels pretty light. The stock bike weighed 31 pounds, pretty heavy for an XC bike, but this frame weighs 1535 grams, a bit off, like 1.5 pounds heavier than a Cervelo or a Specialized XC hardtail. But that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters for this build to me is compliance, capability, and competitiveness. And I better get started because I got a lot of work to do on just this frame. I plan on using and abusing this bike. Carbon race bikes, they get so much ride time and abuse that it's best to look at them as disposable. But I want to protect the major contact areas with my DIY frame protection. I'm not worried about the paint chipping, I'm more worried about carbon gouges. Then I'm applying ceramic coating so hopefully mud and dirt won't stick to the frame. I really think that'll come in handy later because with XC racing, you can end up in a mud race and I think that ceramic will really help shed some of that mud. But now it's time to work on the first C, and this stock RockShox Recon was surprisingly good, and same with these stock bars. And you know, with this carbon frame, you think, you know, carbon means stiff. Well, it was not the case. Riding on gravel roads and, you know, double track, it was very muted. I'm surprised. But the only issue is with these is that they're just heavy. And for the last 2 years, I've owned one of the lightest XC forks in the market. This is my wife's Polygon Xstrata, and her fork is a Fox 34 Stepcast. Yoink! And since the Recon was such a good fork and I'm such a good husband, I'll install the Recon on her bike. Hopefully she won't notice. Oh man, these forks are so freaking light, dude. So the top pros in the sport run this fork, so I mean, doesn't get any better than this really. They might run a different damper or something, but oh wait. Oh, dude, I think I got like a little chip in the stanchion. When the heck did that happen? But that reminds me, I'm gonna service this fork, anything for performance gains, and I haven't serviced this thing in a year and a half. Well, I was gonna service my fork, but they made this nut so close to the wall of the lowers that you can't even get the 10mm socket in there. And I checked it online and it says you need a special socket. And I know what you're gonna say, well, just grind it down. Well, I don't have a bench grinder, and plus, I mean, that's a huge engineering blunder right there. So to save time, I took my service kit to a local suspension place. For just $50, it was all serviced and ready to go within a few hours. So I bought some bars for this bike. They are some carbon bars that normally retail for $190, but I bought them locally for freaking $75. And I'm also gonna try out a 70mm stem because it's an XC bike. That's what you're supposed to do, right? I don't know. I'm gonna do something to these bars and the stem that might piss off a bunch of people. I'm gonna remove the logos. Some people love logos. To them, it's a status symbol. But to me, I don't like being a rolling billboard for brands after I paid full retail for their parts. I tried a lot of ways to remove these envy logos, but some good old wet sanding and elbow grease was the only way to do it. When it came to the stem, I used some nail polish remover, and this removed the logos within seconds. This Agro XC sync line is somewhat of a sleeper build, and I think minimal logos is looking great so far. But when it comes to the fork, I was skeptical about removing these logos, and let me know what you think about removing fork decals. Next up is brakes, and I went with a brand that you probably haven't heard of before. They're called Lewis. This model is called a Lewis LV2, and they have 2 pistons front and rear with really impressive machining, a really great feeling lever, and they're pretty affordable. But when you have a new brand, there's not a lot of reviews to check out, and there's not a lot of tutorials to see how to install them. So I hope that I don't run into any hiccups. I started watching a video on how to work on these, but I made it like 5 seconds. I can figure it out. I'm putting the lever upside down here only because I don't want to spill brake fluid, and I'm doing it for the camera. Usually you see the banjo on the caliper, not the lever, but I'll say that was pretty simple and straightforward, and the lever feels pretty good. I don't think I'll need to bleed it. Beginner's luck, I guess. I'm also trying out these silicone grips. I've used them in the past and they're super shock absorbent and the lightest in the market. They say to squirt isopropyl alcohol, then slide them on. The IPA will dry very quickly and these are not coming off. Have you ever tried these? Wow, this cockpit turned out way better than I expected. This is pretty dang nice, man. And I really like the Lewis system with the banjo for the lever. That was pretty cool to be able to reuse all those parts. And next up, to make this Agro XC bike fully capable of hitting jumps and smooth drops, I need a dropper post. But it's gonna be pretty difficult to install in this frame. And here's where the dilemmas come in. First, this frame has a 27.2 seat post. And most companies don't even make a 27.2 dropper just because it's so thin. And if they do, it's really short travel. I thought about stealing the reverb access off my gravel bike. I even bought a remote to do that, but it's only 75mm of travel. So if I want to slam the seat and get it out of the way for chunk and jumps, well, it's still going to be pretty dang high, just like this one. And that kind of defeats the purpose. So back to my wife's bike to steal her P&W Rainier dropper that has the maximum amount of travel that you can get for a 27.2 dropper, 125mm. And somehow it's still lighter than the reverb axis. But here's the first problem. This frame does not have cable routing for a dropper post. This port right here is for a front derailleur, and the cable runs through these inner guide tubes down to right here. And at first I thought like, all right, I'm gonna drill it out, but the tubing is kind of soft, so I think I'm gonna poke a hole through it. All right, well, that worked out pretty nicely. I mean, a little confusing at first, but I'd say that turned out pretty well. But this dropper just keeps having issues. It's contacting this water bottle riv nut. And I mean, there's nothing I can really do besides, let's get this going. Oh man, that was pretty dang sketchy. Probably the sketchiest thing that I've ever done. And I do not recommend you doing that at home, because now it's like kind of gummed up and there's a big gigantic hole. I didn't expect the whole thing to be pulled out. I thought it was gonna break and fall down into the frame. But now I got this big old hole here, and I don't know, is the frame compromised? I mean, the hole was technically already there, just filled up by a rivet nut. I don't know. Should I fill it up with carbon patch or whatever? Let me know. But yeah, I do not recommend that. But let's see if the dropper fits. All right, moment of truth. Can I pretty much slam this? Oh yeah, I think that's hitting the next one. But yeah, that's looking pretty promising. Yes, dude. Well, the dropper is successfully on and the frame warranty is completely voided. I am a little bit worried about that hole still, and I don't know, man. I think it should be okay. I mean, the seat post occupies this space, so it's kind of like a secondary structural thing, but I don't even know if it's structural. So let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll patch the carbon. I don't know. Let me know what you think I should do. But moving forward, it's time to make this thing competitive. And I'm gonna install some kind of lightweight parts. To stay consistent, the tire and rim logos got to go. So I'm trying a new solution called Dinitrol to cover the logos. I tried nail polish remover, but it didn't work. But this stuff is way cheaper than the 3M primer that I used in the past, and it works great. This wheel set is the cherry on top of this build. Carbon rims, bird spokes. It may not be the lightest at 1,500 grams, but they're strong and compliant. If you know me, you know that I like expensive bottom brackets, but even the most expensive bottom bracket is susceptible to rain and mud, so back to the generic $30 bottom bracket for me. I'm also installing my power meter. These can see how hard you're pedaling by measuring torque and wattage, and it's a really effective tool for training and analyze racing, but not a lot of people use them in mountain biking. Have you ever tried one? I recently acquired a used XX1 axis shifter and derailleur. Don't ask me how, but it's because I'm acquiring parts in various ways to get ready for High-Low Season 2, which I'm doing once I hit 150,000 subscribers. Only 10K subs to go, so subscribe if you want to see that. With that, the bike is complete, and dude, this thing feels pretty light, man. Let's see what it weighs. 23.6 pounds. Dude, that's insane. This is gonna be the lightest mountain bike I've ever ridden. All right, let's go ride this thing. For a bike to be competitive, it needs to roll fast, which this bike does, and it needs to climb fast. And this bike doesn't climb itself, but what I'm noticing when the trail kicks up in steepness, instead of downshifting, I can actually power through that, and it's really easy to do. The bike will not be holding me back. The only thing that's holding me back is my fitness and my weight. And then when it comes to compliance, wait, what the hell is going on over here? I guess that section of the trail is closed. Bentonville's weird sometimes. When you start bolting lightweight parts onto a carbon frame, your bike might be overly stiff. And then compliance means that the bike is kind of shock absorbent, so you don't feel those harsh bumps. Well, the stock bike was already like super absorbent on like gravel roads and everything. But obviously I put a nice fork on here, that feels great. But the real winner here is this ESI chunky grips. They advertise them as shock absorbent, and I can do multiple hand positions, and it feels great. It feels really good. And it's $20 grips. Who would have thought? I'm also really liking this axis shifter. The buttons are just like in a really perfect position. I think this whole cockpit setup is fantastic. I mean, really compliant. The bike is not super good in this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not super great at chunk. A small little rock garden is fine, but I mean, it's an XC bike. It doesn't need to do everything that my trail bike or my enduro bike would do. So for this bike, I'll just skip the chunk trails. Oh. Redo, I'm still getting used to the bike. Yeah. Oh yeah, these brakes are actually pretty powerful. I like them. Yeah, sure, they squeal a little bit, but they have so much power, and call me weird, I kind of like when my brakes make a little bit of noise like that, as long as it's not like obnoxious. Overall, I'm really liking this bike so far, and I can really see myself riding this bike as my main bike, kind of just grinding out the miles, not doing anything crazy, just a single track machine, just getting fit, But I do want to be able to hit some jumps, and that's the last C, capability. So let's go see how it does on Bourbon Creek. So So the key to hitting jumps and drops and chunk is getting low for stability. And when you don't have a dropper, I mean, I felt like I was on stilts and like I had no control over the bike. So that's why a dropper is super important. Let's send this thing. Well, it might not be the most fun bike to jump, but it's definitely capable. And that's what I wanted, yeah.